Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning into News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi bringing you this special broadcast of top stories at 2 from our studios here in the National Capital Region, styled exclusively by none other than Paul Moore, ladies and gentlemen. We've got lots and lots to cover. First and foremost, take a look at that. And for all those people who are heavy gym users, who like to keep fit, who like to overstress themselves, talk about high-intensity interval training or well, AMRAPs, EMOMs, you name it. Well, today, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya, citing an Indian Council of Medical Research report, has said that those who had earlier suffered a severe bout of COVID-19 must not overexert themselves for at least a year or two to avoid heart attacks and cardiac arrests. Now talking to the media on the sidelines of an event in his native district of Bhavnagar in, Gujarat, Mandaviya said that the Indian Council of Medical Research had done a detailed study on the subject and advised that those who had recovered from severe COVID infections should not exert themselves. There's a reaction. Listen in.
આઈસી અમારે હમણાં એક ડિટેલ સ્ટડી કર્યો છે. એ ડિટેલ સ્ટડી એવું કહી રહ્યો છે કે જે લોકોને સિવિયર કોવિડ થયો હોય અને એનો સમય જાજો ન થયો હોય એવી સ્થિતિની અંદર એમણે અધિક પરિશ્રમ નહીં કરવો જોઈએ. એમણે પોતાની સેહતનું સખત મહેનત, સખત દોડવું, સખત એક્સરસાઇઝ કરવી એવા કામોથી એક ચોક્કસ ટાઈમ માટે યાની કે શોર્ટ ટાઈમ માટે 1-2 વર્ષ માટે દૂર રહેવું જોઈએ તાકી હાર્ટ એટેકની ઘટનાથી બચી શકાય.
So certainly too many questions that now arise after the Union Health Minister's statement. And to speak more on that, Dr. Balbir Singh, Group Chairman of the Max Cardiology, joins us here on the broadcast. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Balbir Singh. Doctor, first and foremost, how are you looking at the Union Health Minister's statement over there? Has he dispelled fears, or do you think there's going to be more topics for discussion every day on the dinner table now?
So what the health minister said is absolutely online, and I always thought that athleticism or heavy exercise is not a protective thing against heart disease. I always kept that view, and now in this era post-COVID, we are seeing so many heart attacks happening of people who were on the gym or on the stress test, and this is not unusual to expect because COVID caused a lot of problems, many of which we are not understood even now. So COVID, we know, is linked to thrombosis. And when does this thrombosis effect wear off? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? We can't answer that question. So there is a direct link between heart attack and this thrombosis. Second, this virus also affected the myocardium. It caused myocarditis, which was proven on the MRI studies, that even though they didn't have heart symptoms, but there was an inflammation of the myocardium. So does this inflammation, when a person overexerts, manifest as sudden death or a heart attack is also not clear to us. So we can't take COVID as lightly. So particularly those people who were in the hospital, were admitted, are the highest risk. Those who needed oxygen are the highest risk. Because that means once a severe infection sets in, that means the heart muscle also got some inflammation with it, even though we didn't know it. But we can see the things that are happening are probably linked because the spike that we are seeing, deaths due to heavy exercise, is never happened. I had never seen so many deaths happening in the gym activity as they are now. So there is some correlation. We'll take time to understand that. We need a lot of studies. We need data to prove it or disprove it. But as of now, till the time this is proven or disproven, we should be taking adequate precautions to prevent ourselves from overexerting ourselves, particularly if somebody's had a severe COVID in the past. I totally agree with the health minister.
Dr. Balbir, at the same time, we're looking towards another round of Olympics. Only recently, the Asian Games got concluded. All our athletes, we must expect them to push their limits as well. Isn't that the idea when one is striving for those medals to bring back home great honors for your country? Where is that line
So,
that one has to draw? Where is that line that one can draw? And what kind of tests can one go after to understand how fit their heart actually is? You're talking about inflammation of the cardiac muscle. Are there some tests that people can now administer and understand where they stand on the spectrum?
So, in my opinion, anybody who is getting into athleticism or athletic activities or going into heavy sports should have an ECG and an echo as a baseline test before they actually are pushed into getting into very competitive sports. This is being done in many countries, and I think it's something very easy to follow and easy to do non-invasive tests. It can give a lot of clues. Not that it is 100% sure that we'll be able to pick up people who will not have a sudden cardiac death on heavy exertion, but at least we make a beginning. We make to understand them about this.
All right. And you know, at the same time, now that something like this has been cited by the Union Health Minister, all those people that were, subscribing to various conspiracy theories regarding vaccines, and many calling them quacksines as well, would you like to throw some light on that as well? Are the vaccines also under scrutiny here?
So, COVID problem was so severe that everything had to be rushed up. So the vaccines were also rushed up with studies which were not as big as one would have wanted with a long follow-up with these vaccines. So there has been questions in some of the studies. It's in medical literature where there is some studies which have questioned the heart attacks happening during due to the vaccination. It is not a proven fact. It doesn't mean the vaccines are not safe, but it means that we have to be careful in administering more doses. At the moment, there are no guidelines to administer more doses, even after those who have taken it for 1 year. So we will be more cautious and expect that more research will be done in these vaccines before we start thinking that once a year vaccine would be adequate. Like for flu vaccines, we administer 1 year because we have so much data, we have so much faith on these vaccines. COVID vaccines were brought up in a lot of hurry because many people were dying with COVID, and a lot of studies were inadequate to actually be powered into doing this, to suggesting that vaccine can be stopped. So we have to have more data on vaccines before we say they are unsafe. At the moment, it is has been asked, like you asked, many studies have tried to answer this question, and we can't positively say that they do harm. They have done a lot of safety and saved many lives, but have they harmed anybody? We are not sure on that.
All right, all right. I do agree that humanity was faced with a timing task, and we had to come up with a hasty vaccination. That, of course, is there, Doctor. But, breaking down the operative parts of what the health minister here said, he says that those who had a severe bout of COVID-19 earlier, now, for those who did not go through a severe bout of COVID-19 but felt that weakness, they were still at home, they self-quarantined themselves. Many did not get themselves administered, a proper test of rapid antigen testing, but they still quarantined themselves. The health minister says 1 or 2 years. You're telling us that there is still lack of clarity. So how do we come to a time frame कि इतने दिनों तक आपको exercise नहीं करनी है? For this stipulated amount of time, do not go into the gym. And for those who do not even know if they had COVID-19, what about them?
Okay, right. So we have to go with the idea that everybody got a COVID. I would not even buy the theory that somebody tells me that he did not have COVID. Now then, there were many kinds of people who did not even have any symptoms. Those who stayed at home had a fever for 1 or 2 days. And the third group, which was hospitalized. So I'll be most careful about the people who were hospitalized or had oxygen therapy or were on BiPAP, non-invasive ventilation, or ventilators. This is the most high-risk group. I understand clearly from what the kind of patients I see, those who were hospitalized still have some kind of symptoms, still have ghabrat, still have anxiety, still have heart rates which are high. So they are not all right even today. So this is the group which I will target, not the group which did not have any symptoms or did not have any fever, did not get any medications and felt fine. That group, I would not be that unhappy. That means our immunity was very good to take care of the virus. And I would be okay with that group exercising. Now, the other group we are talking of is those who developed severe illness. In that, if those people ask me how much should they exercise. I would say exercise is important for everybody. A brisk walking, light yoga, or some very good form of exercise. You don't need to run. People think that by running and producing sweat, they are doing good to the heart. Probably they are not doing good to the heart.
I think each to their own. One really has to understand the signs and the calls of their own body. But even as we're talking about that, Dr. Balbir, and wrapping up this segment, I think smartwatches in today's time are something that one needs. What's your opinion on that? Because everybody can understand where their heartbeat and their rhythmic, rhythm lies, and if need be, they can make changes according to their own, design and whatever deems fit.
Right. So COVID did all the bad things, but COVID did some good things also to us. One of the good things is people have now started self-monitoring. People now want to check their saturations. People want to wear smartwatches. And I think it's a great thing for us, because many patients have been coming because they felt the heart rate was very slow on the smartwatch. And they came to me early in the disease, and we were able to pick up a lot of things. So it's a boon, actually, that people are involved in their self-care and trying to know their blood pressure. Many patients came up because they never had checked their blood pressure before. Now, after the COVID or during the COVID, they started checking their blood pressure, saturations. With the smartwatches, now you can do an ECG also. One lead ECG can come to us, and we can actually make out what's going on. So it's been a boon for us to diagnose many illnesses, which sometimes could be delayed presentations to the hospital.
Right, doctor. The boon and the bane. What weighs heavier on the Libra scale? Well, it seems like that jury is still out. We'll still have to wait and find out. Meanwhile, Dr. Balbir, many thanks for joining with us and helping us out with your insightful inputs. Union Minister Mansukh Mandaviya telling all those people who had a severe bout of COVID-19 to stay away, keep away from overexerting themselves, from strenuous exercising inside the gym, at least for a year or 2 years at max. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court of India has directed the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker to decide on the disqualification petitions filed by Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena against Eknath Shinde faction and the MLAs that are supporting him. Now, the CJI has asked Maharashtra Speaker to make a decision by the 31st of December and on the NCP petitions by 31st of January. So 31st of December is the date that has been set by the Chief Justice of India. He says, we're only going to be taking up these petitions in the month of January, get them over with by the 31st of December. Maharashtra Assembly Speaker will now have to decide on the disqualification petitions that have been filed by the Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena against Eknath Shinde's faction and the MLAs that are supporting him. And maintaining our focus on the state of Maharashtra, the Maratha reservation agitation took a violent turn today as agitators vandalized and set on fire the residence of NCP MLA Prakash Solanki in Bid. Visuals that were shared online show a large white-colored house completely engulfed in flames and thick plumes of smoke rising from the building. Now visibly shaken, Prakash Solanki said that he was inside the house when it was set on fire, and fortunately none of his family or staff members were harmed in the incident. The incident comes days after the reservation protests in Maharashtra once again intensified after quota activist Manoj Jarange sat on an indefinite hunger strike on the 25th of October in the Antarwali Satari village in Jalna district. The agitators are demanding reservation for the Maratha community in government job and educational institutes in the state of Maharashtra. Moving on. In a terror incident reported from Jammu and Kashmir, a migrant labourer has been shot dead by terrorists in the Pulwama district. The migrant labourer has been identified as Mukesh Kumar and he hailed from Uttar Pradesh. Kashmir police has informed that terrorists fired upon Mukesh in the Tumchi Naupora area of Pulwama and Mukesh later succumbed to his injuries at the hospital. The police has cordoned off the area and further investigation and probe is currently underway. So Kashmir police informs that the terrorists fired upon Mukesh in the Tumchi Naupora area of Pulwama. Mukesh has succumbed to his injuries at the hospital. He was a labourer from Uttar Pradesh working in Pulwama. Terrorists fired upon the labourer who has now succumbed to his injuries at the hospital. He's been identified as Mukesh Kumar. He hailed from Uttar Pradesh. The spate of attacks on non-locals in Jammu and Kashmir continues unabated.
ये जो खेत है काफी गले इसको अब जो पुलिस जो है गाड़ी के ऊपर आ जाता है और यही वजह है कि आप देख सकते हैं फोर्सेस की कितनी बड़ी तादाद यहाँ पे मौजूद है जो अपना तलाशी अभियान जो है कार्रवाई जो है सर्च ऑपरेशन जो है वो लगातार कर रहे हैं वही जो फोर्स बड़ी तादाद इस इलाके में पहुंच चुकी है और वहीं पे अगर हम बात करें ये जो खेत है काफी गले इसको अब जो पुलिस जो है गाड़ी के ऊपर आ जाता है और यही वजह है कि आप देख सकते हैं
The Kalamassery blast updates next. The death toll in the Kalamassery prayer meet explosion has risen to 3 now. 50 people were injured in the incident. A 12-year-old girl from Malayattur who was undergoing treatment has succumbed to her injuries. At least 2,000 people were in attendance for a 3-day convention in Kalamassery. After the blast, the injured were rushed to nearby hospitals, including the Kalamassery Medical College. Now, the Kerala police has sounded a high alert across all 14 districts following the explosion. The blast was caused by an IED and low-intensity explosives as per the sources in the NIA and the NSG. The DGP and the NIA, the NSG, the ATS teams and operatives inspected the blast site. Some live visuals on your television screens, ladies and gentlemen, even as the Chief Minister of Kerala held an all-party meeting in Thiruvananthapuram. These are visuals coming across from Kochi, where all the probe teams are currently doing their rounds in and out of the convention centre in Zamra. Like I suggested, the DGP and the NIA, the NSG, the ATS teams and their operatives have already inspected the blast site. They've already surveilled all the CCTV footage in the entire area, some 70-80 of those cameras. The Kerala Chief Minister, he's holding an all-party meeting in the state capital to review the situation. Meanwhile, words and reactions from some major stakeholders here listening.
This is a highly prejudiced approach with a clear intention to target a particular community. It is a part of their communal agenda. On what basis has he made these statements? Was he in possession of any sensitive information that prompted him to make such a statement? This is a grave issue. People should not be misled. We will take this on legally.
Under Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, Kerala has shown increasingly a tolerance towards radical elements and radicalization, that whether it is in June 23's Elattur Kozhikode attempt to burn a train which would have caused, God forbid if he had succeeded, over 200-300 deaths, and the characterization of that person as being mentally ill, till it was revealed that he was, till investigation revealed that he was a Zakir Naik, an ISIS sympathizer, and that it was a deliberate attempt at terrorism. That is also in the history. And what I said is that there is a history of appeasement of radical elements by both the Congress and the left in Kerala. And I said this in the context of the Hamas chief being given an opportunity with no intervention by the government of Kerala or indeed the Kerala police to address a large gathering of youth and inciting them with radicalism. And Hamas, contrary to what Shri Munir says of the Indian Union Muslim League or what Swaraj says of the CPM, is certainly a terror organization that has wrecked lives, raped women, killed children in the recent attacks on Israel. And for that organization to be given an opportunity to radicalize our youth is the point that I made in my commentary yesterday. In the backdrop of what repeatedly has been said about growing radicalization in Kerala and this turning a blind eye to radicalism approach of both the Congress and the left.
Yesterday, the bomb blast which took place in Ernakulam is to be condemned by one and all. It is to be condemned by one and all. But I would like to make my press people remember that I was here in July 2022 and I had made a statement that this Pinarayi Vijayan government is soft towards the radical forces. I said that they are soft. They are trying to cover. They are trying to mislead the people of Kerala. And at the same time, the radical forces are on increase and there is silent support. I will not use the word support, but there is silent convenience which gives the space to the radicals to go forward. When I say so, I would like to share with you how it happened that the Calicut bomb blast is being underplayed. Why it is happening that the Calicut bomb blast things are not coming out on the surface? It is being subdued. Who is in the government? Why it is happening? That people have to realize and understand. The same way, few days back, a leader of Hamas, he joined virtually here and he was talking openly about the Hamas. And this government was a silent spectator. What does this mean? You are bringing a bad name to the land of God's own country, Kerala.
I told you, see, we have 17 persons in different hospitals. 12 of them are in ICU and 4 are critically ill. 3 of them are ventilated. So we are giving every possible support that is to be provided to them. We are giving that all the support. Yes, most of them who are critically ill, they have burns around 50%, above 50%, around 60% and all. So I said 4 are critically ill and the rest they are almost stable. That's all the police will answer. So the police is content.
Health condition is concerned.
See, they all have burns. No other injuries are found. They have burns. Let the police conduct the inquiry. They will answer all the questions. Yes.
There was some hate campaign after the incident through the social media, and some irresponsible statements was made by some of the leaders, including a central minister. So we deplored such attempts, and Kerala will be united to address this situation. We supported the government to take action against the culprits, and this will not use against the Kerala state. This is an isolated incident, and we demanded to strengthen the intelligence machinery in Kerala, and we demanded a strict vigilance on the social media. That was our demand. That demands were accepted, and we want the government to regularly address the hate campaign which is happening in social media also.
Kerala should not be communally divided. There may be difference between government and opposition, ruling party and opposition party. That doesn't matter. That is on political ground. Communal division, communal divide and exploit that situation. No major political party of Kerala will agree with that. But certain corners, communal parties, they try to do that. So this kind of propaganda should not be there. Utilizing this kind of incidents may happen, but it's a criminal activity. It has to be handled strong-handedly, and enough guard, intelligence guard should be there. That's what we made today. More vigilance in the context of this incident. This is not a usual incident, unusual in Kerala, such incident. So we have to make sure these kind of things doesn't happen also. After happening, what is the point? So it should not happen. For that, some precautionary measures should be taken. Government has agreed to that to make the vigilance more strong.
Well, so Pinarayi Vijayan, ever since the blast took place yesterday, has been facing the ire of the opposition in the state. Many political parties coming out and saying that the Pinarayi Vijayan dispensation should have been more hard-hitting at the radical elements in the state of Kerala. Meanwhile, visuals that we're getting of the Chief Minister, who's now visited the hospital, the Kalamassery Medical College hospital, must have gone down to take a stock of the situation, how many patients are actually there, accompanied by various ministers and of course Veena George, the Health Minister of the state of Kerala, who's already cancelled all holidays of all the government official staffers to all the government hospitals. They were called in yesterday. No more Sunday for anybody essentially, because as soon as the attack and the blast took place, all the staffers were back in their respective roles. And moving on, take a look at this. Medak MP and BRS candidate from Dubaka for the forthcoming elections, Kota Prabhakar Reddy, was stabbed in the stomach by an unidentified man. All of this happened during his campaign at Suramali village of Daulatabad Mandal today. Take a look at that. Visuals on your television screens. Of course, we've had to blur those visuals because they are a little violent in nature. Prabhakar Reddy has been rushed to the Gajwal hospital, from where he is likely to be shifted to Hyderabad. The assailant was caught and thrashed by a crowd as well. Well, the assailant was caught. He was thrashed by the crowd and then later handed over to the police, who are now trying to identify him. But this is the latest that we're bringing for all the viewers out there. Kota Prabhakar Reddy, for the forthcoming elections, was campaigning at Surampalli village in Daulatabad Mandal. Today, this very morning, he was stabbed amidst that campaign rally. Somebody from that campaign rally who's now with the police after a thrashing by the crowd. He's with the police. They're trying to identify who this person was, but the assailant has stabbed the Medak MP and BRS candidate from Dubaka. Well, maintaining our focus on the state of Telangana, where BJP's Telangana State President and Union Minister G. Kishan Reddy kicked off a political storm by saying that the BJP will replace Muslim reservations with benefits for backward classes communities. Now, the campaign to implement this change will intensify from the 3rd of November with the participation of union ministers and central leaders. Kishan Reddy criticized the Chief Minister, K. Chandrasekhar Rao, for failing to appoint any women ministers and not implementing the BC sub-plan. He also accused the Congress of not providing BCs with their share of reservation and supporting the Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin by taking away the backward classes' reservations. He also added that the backward classes have been overlooked in the name of minority reservations, and the BJP aims to address this issue by scrapping minority reservations in their first cabinet meeting if they come to power in Telangana.
पार्टी निर्णय किया है जो रिलीजियस के नाम पर जो रिजर्वेशंस है तेलंगाना में 4%, उस रिजर्वेशंस को रद्द करके तेलंगाना में जो एससी, बीसी, एसटी रिजर्वेशंस बढ़ाएंगे। हम पूरे सामाजिक दृष्टिकोण से सबको न्याय देने का निर्णय भारतीय जनता पार्टी के द्वारा करते हैं। जो ईबीसी रिजर्वेशन है उनसे अंतर्गत जो माइनॉरिटीज, मुस्लिम हो, क्रिश्चियन हो, अलग सामाजिक वर्ग हो, उनको भी ईबीसी रिजर्वेशंस अमल करके उनको भी न्याय करेंगे भारतीय जनता पार्टी सरकार आने के बाद। क्योंकि लोकल बॉडीज में जो ग्राम पंचायती लेके कारपोरेशन तक जितने भी बीसी रिजर्वेशंस का लोकल बॉडी चुनाव में रिजर्वेशंस है, उसको जो रिलीजियस रिजर्वेशन के नाम पर जो बीसी में शामिल किया गया, मुस्लिम रिजर्वेशन को बीसी में लाए गए, उसके कारण सभी जगह रियल जो बीसी है उनको अन्याय हो रहे। भारतीय जनता पार्टी इसको पूरा बदल कर हम बीसी को न्याय करने का निर्णय भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी सरकार के द्वारा हम करने वाले हैं।
And next up, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met the families of the 8 Indian Navy veterans that have been detained in Qatar. The minister posted on his social media that he had stressed that the government will attach the highest priority to this particular case. He also assured that the government will continue to make all efforts to secure the release of 8 Indians who were sentenced to death by a local Qatari court on the 26th of October. However, the charges against the Indian nationals were not made public by Qatari authorities. All 8 detained Indian nationals were working at Al Dahra Company in Qatar. That's the tweet by Dr. S. Jaishankar, who says, met this morning with the families of the 8 Indians detained in Qatar, stressed that government attaches the highest importance to the case, fully share the concern and pain of the families, underlined that government will continue to make all efforts to secure their release, will coordinate closely with the families in this very regard. Moving on, the Supreme Court has denied bail to former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia in the Delhi excise policy scam case. The top court rejected 2 separate bail pleas of Delhi's former Deputy Chief Minister Sisodia. The Supreme Court had reserved its verdict on Sisodia's bail plea earlier this month. The 51-year-old has sought bail in 2 separate cases against him, one filed by the Central Bureau of Investigation and the other by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, Manish Sisodia was arrested by the CBI on the 26th of February for his alleged role in the Delhi liquor policy scam case and has been in judicial custody since then. Meanwhile, the Enforcement Directorate arrested him in a money laundering case stemming from the CBI case on March 9th after questioning him in Tihar jail. The judgment was authored by Justice Khanna, who, while reserving the case for a verdict on the 17th of October, had asked the ED how an offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the PMLA, would be made out in the absence of a bribery charge against Manish Sisodia. Well, how did the ED come into the picture? Now, CBI named Manish Sisodia and 14 others in the liquor scam FIR in the first place to begin with. Later, the Enforcement Directorate claimed that the proceeds of the crime amounted to over rupees 292 crore rupees. Now, the Enforcement Directorate emphasized the need to establish the modus operandi, which is another question that the Supreme Court also had asked. The Enforcement Directorate argued that the policy had deliberate loopholes that favored the Aam Aadmi Party. Well, now, next up, shifting our focus to the 24th day of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Well, today marks day 24 since Israel suffered potentially the worst attack in its brief history as a nation. Hamas carried out deadly attacks on the southern Israel front on the 7th of October. Here's the latest update from the war front. Israeli military intensifies its airstrikes in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announces a quote-unquote second stage in the war. This even as various informations were put out by the IDF. Now, Hamas tunnels, they continue to pose a challenge for the Israeli Defense Forces. 8,005 Palestinians, including 3,342 children, have been killed across the Gaza Strip. Internet phone services were restored in some parts of Gaza. Now, the WHO chief's plea for a quote-unquote ceasefire and peace has been ringing alarm bells across the globe. Israeli forces struck military infrastructure in Syria as well. And this even as the United Nations warns of growing hunger and desperation across the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, even as all of this is happening, the Israeli Defense Forces maintained and expanded ground operations in Gaza during the intervening night. According to IDF, an Israeli Air Force aircraft guided by ground forces struck a Hamas post and the 20-plus terrorist operatives in it. Israeli soldiers spotted armed terrorists and an anti-tank missile launching post near the Al-Azhar University and guided an Israeli Air Force fighter jet to strike Hamas's post. Additionally, IDF forces eliminated multiple terrorists barricaded within civilian buildings and terrorist tunnels who attempted to attack the forces. Thousands of Gaza residents were reported to have broken into United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, the UNRWA, warehouses and distribution centers to obtain essential supplies like flour. Take a look at the cacophony and commotion on your screens. This situation has unfolded as aid supplies to Gaza have been severely restricted due to recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, causing significant strain on UNRWA's ability to assist people in the region. Even before the conflict, the organization had expressed concerns about its mandate due to funding shortages. Now, the UNRWA, established in 1949, provides public services and humanitarian aid in various regions, including Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Facing sharp criticism from allies and the opposition, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu apologized for an earlier statement in which he blamed the security services for failing to prevent the deadly Hamas attack on the 7th of October. Benjamin Netanyahu apologized and said that he was wrong in a post that he made on X, formerly known as Twitter, shortly after deleting his original statement. Earlier, the Premier had posted on the same social media platform that he had never received any warnings of Hamas's war intentions at any stage, stressing that all the security services, including the head of military agencies and the intelligence and the head of the Shin Bet, were of the opinion that Hamas was deterred and wanted to come to a settlement. His comments evoked sharp criticism, following which they were deleted. Several security chiefs have also accepted responsibility for the massive failure, but Benjamin Netanyahu has desisted from taking any blame for it. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir stressed that the issue isn't merely about specific warnings but revolves around a flawed overall strategy. He pointed to the policy of containment the illusion of deterrence, and the high cost of seeking temporary peace as the fundamental issues at the core of the problem. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday that the Israeli forces had unleashed the second phase of the Gaza war as they pressed ground operations against Hamas terrorists, vowing to quote-unquote destroy the enemy above the ground and below the ground.
Israel is now in its second phase of the Gaza war, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday, adding that forces are carrying out ground operations against Hamas militants. The war inside the Gaza Strip will be difficult and long, and we are prepared for it, he said. This Israel Defense Forces footage purports to show that second stage unfolding in the Hamas-ruled Palestinian enclave. Netanyahu once again called on Palestinian civilians to leave the northern Gaza Strip, the focus of Israel's attack. Israel has tightened its blockade on Gaza and bombarded it for 3 weeks now. People are isolated, with a telephone and internet blackout that began on Friday. Many buildings there have been reduced to rubble. People are scrambling for food, water, fuel, and medicine. Gaza health authorities say over 7,500 Palestinians have been killed in the campaign. On October 7th, an assault by Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis in the deadliest day of the nation's 75-year history. Meanwhile, there has been growing concern internationally over the toll from the bombing in Gaza and calls for a pause to let aid get to civilians. Here's UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk.
I am raising alarm about the possibly catastrophic consequences of large-scale ground operations in Gaza and the potential for thousands more civilians to die. Continued violence is not the answer.
Also on Saturday, Netanyahu met with families of Israelis being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, vowing to exhaust every possibility to bring the more than 200 of them home.
And now a closer look at the concerns raised by a group lobbying for the families of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. They insist that the safety of their loved ones must be a top priority for the Israeli government, especially as military operations in the Gaza Strip intensify.
A group lobbying for the families of Israeli hostages held by Hamas say the safety of their loved ones needs to be a top priority for the government. Their concerns come as the Israeli military expands ground operations in the Gaza Strip.
Keep pushing.
Adva Adar believes her 85-year-old grandmother is in Gaza, based on photos and footage purporting to show her capture. Reuters could not independently verify the location or date of filming of videos showing hostages being kidnapped.
My grandmother doesn't have the time to wait. She needs to be back home now. She's ill and she needs medication and she needs medical care.
On Saturday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel's goals in the war were to destroy Hamas's governing and military capabilities, as well as return the more than 200 hostages.
As her boyfriend, I truly afraid that these two goals is like in conflict with each other.
Noam Alon's girlfriend, Inbar Hyman, is one of the hostages.
I think that first, the hostages should be free.
Israel has tightened its blockade and bombarded Gaza since Hamas gunmen stormed across the border into Israel on October 7th, killing at least 1,400 people, as well as taking the hostages.
We are not political people or, military people. We are two simple people that try to save our sister.
Leah and Leonia Nye believe their sister Moran was taken hostage at the Nova Music Festival.
We found a clip from TikTok with begging for her life.
And they say time is of the essence.
If Moran is listening to us, Moran, we are united together. We love you so much.
Continue to be positive as you are. And think about the big hugs we're all going to give you when you come back. And I want you to know that we're doing everything we can to bring you back home as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, top Congress leader Sonia Gandhi, in an article in The Hindu, made some strong points regarding Indian National Congress's stance on the Israel-Hamas conflict. She said that the Congress is quote-unquote strongly opposed to India's abstention on the recent UN resolution on the Israel-Hamas conflict. She asserted that her party had unequivocally condemned Hamas's attacks on Israel. In an article in a daily, Gandhi said, and I quote, "Humanity is on trial now," calling for the loudest and most powerful voices to be for a cessation of military activity. She further said, "We were collectively diminished by the brutal attacks on Israel. We are now all diminished by Israel's disproportionate and equally brutal response. How many more lives will have to be taken before our collective conscience is stirred and awakened?" Gandhi further added that this tragedy is being compounded by the quote-unquote power of the Israeli state, which is now focused on exacting revenge from a population that is largely as helpless as it is blameless. The destructive might of one of the world's most potent military arsenals is being unleashed upon children, women and men who have no part in the Hamas assault. They instead, for the most part, have been at the heart of decades of discrimination and suffering. Now, Sonia Gandhi emphasized, quote-unquote, the Israeli government is making a grievous error in equating the actions of Hamas with the Palestinian people. Articulating the Congress's stand on the Israel-Palestine issue, she said there can be no peace without justice. She said, and I quote, "The position of the Indian National Congress has been long-standing and principled. It is to support direct negotiations for a sovereign, independent, viable and secure state of Palestine coexisting in peace with Israel."
इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के ऊपर कांग्रेस के सीनियर मोस्ट लीडर ने पिछले हाल के वर्षों में कब आर्टिकल लिखा है, और ये तो भारत में कर चुके हैं। इसी के समकक्ष 26/11 हुआ था, और बैरक ओबामा ने अपनी किताब द प्रॉमिस लैंड में 2010 में अपनी यात्रा के दौरान डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह से वार्ता के आधार पर यह लिखा था कि भारत की सेना एक कड़ी कार्रवाई करने के लिए तैयार थी, मगर उस समय की कांग्रेस सरकार ने इसलिए कार्रवाई नहीं की पाकिस्तान के विरुद्ध, क्योंकि उन्हें लग रहा था कि इससे उपजे वातावरण से भारतीय जनता पार्टी को राजनीतिक लाभ न हो जाए। इसलिए देश की सुरक्षा और आतंकवाद से लड़ाई को राजनीति के नफे नुकसान के सियासी तराजू पर तौलकर मत देखिए, देश के दीर्घकालिक हित को ध्यान में रख के देखिए। आतंकवाद को लेकर किसी भी प्रकार का किंतु परंतु राजनीतिक दलों में नहीं होना चाहिए। आतंकवाद पर राजनीति नहीं, राष्ट्रनीति होनी चाहिए। जांच की प्रक्रिया शुरू हुई है और उसके द्वारा यह बात सामने आएगी। परंतु मैं यह भी कहना चाहता हूं, आतंकवाद को किसी भी प्रकार का व्यवहारिक नहीं, नैतिक समर्थन देना भी, प्रत्यक्ष नहीं परोक्ष रूप से देना भी, किंतु परंतु कहकर देना भी, मेरे विचार से मानवता के लिए भी घातक है, राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा के लिए भी घातक और संवेदनशील है।
Well, it's a political brink pinching back at home, even as the Gaza Strip runs out of fuel, water, electricity, and now hope. That's all the time we have for you in this edition of Top Stories. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a